Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We are the OCD Visual Advocates. I am co-host Matthew Bannister. I am a Grassroots passionate advocate. And with me is the amazing, the one and only Carol Edwards, who is also a IOCDF Advocate and author of Address Staring OCD.
Thanks. Hi, everyone.
We are today going to discuss OCD and paedophile obsessions with visual tics. As we know, these themes are both taboo, and we want to help advocate on this to where we can explain from our advocacy point of views what these themes are and how people can experience them in the OCD community, and also to say the differences with that as well, and the similarities, and how, let's say, VTO can even create the obsession of POCD with that. So I will let you go on with that, Carol.
All right, so we'll just describe what OCD is, as usual. So as we know, OCD is a mental health disorder characterised by uncontrollable intrusive thoughts, images and urges. These lead to obsessional doubt, where people do compulsions to eliminate imagined threats and reduce anxiety. For example, a person may avoid being near children to stop the feared outcome of being imprisoned due to having paedophile intrusive thoughts and doubting one's sexual preference.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one.
And then we come to the visual tics. People with paedophile obsessions may also experience automatic visual tics, similar to what you might see in Tourette syndrome, which we've discussed in our other videos. In this case, it is a visual tourettic OCD. So when people tic, it appears as though they are staring at the private regions of others inappropriately. Sometimes it can include staring at children. It can be distressing for people with this problem and often leads to guilt and shame, as it may feel like they're acting on hidden desires or impulses. However, research has shown something crucial, which is that the connection between OCD and obsessions, that also include visual tics, does not reflect a person's true desires. Therefore, it's important to understand that guilt and shame are misplaced emotions despite feeling real.
Yeah.
Anything to say on that, Matthew?
Yeah, like you say, brilliant there, Carol. Like with this, it can be so debilitating from anyone who's going with this. I mean, having POCD as well, it can be so, like I say, guilt shaming, and you can feel that your world's crumbling beneath you. Basically, it can be so soul destroying, because you'd be panicking like, am I a monster now? Why is this happening to me? Why am I getting these thoughts? And it's like the same as well with VTO, when obviously when this tic is happening, it's going towards, let's say, children. It can really make you really doubt things very much of your morals. But the key thing to take away from that is knowing that OCD is ego dystonic.
Yeah, definitely.
It does not define you. It does not define your morals or identity. And that's not reassurance. That is absolute assurance. Yeah. And that is a game-changing thing, because with this, it can be really, really, really debilitating to live with. And you can even lead to isolation. You could have, like I say, with your family, let's say if you have children, you could be afraid of going near your children because of the intrusive thoughts that can be happening with, like, say, POCD. And even with VTO, you'd be frightened at even looking at your children, because you'd be like, oh, I don't want to look in these places because this could mean that I'm a paedophile. And it can be so debilitating like that. But as we know, again, that OCD is ego dystonic. It does not define you in any shape or form. And just always remember knowing that. And that's when you can start progressing, like, say, with treatment, what we're about to discuss later on.
Yeah, really good points there, Matthew.
Thank you.
And people with OCD often develop obsessions contrary to their moral or ethical beliefs. So again, what you've said, it's ego dystonic. For instance, according to the IOCDF, International OCD Foundation, there's a significant amount of individuals with OCD who experience taboo, intrusive thoughts related to sex and violent or religious themes. And these intrusive thoughts can cause overwhelming anxiety and lead to debilitating compulsions.
Yeah, like I say, again, it can lead to, like I say, isolation, to where like you're basically imprisoning yourself maybe in your house or like say a room, and you'd be so frightened of going anywhere because you're frightened of the judgment, obviously, what these themes you believe that can give you, and the stigma around it. And you just feel like so disgusted. You feel such in shame all the time. You feel like basically, like I say, again, it's just soul destroying, and it's a horrendous thing to live with. But this is why it's so important, as what we do for advocacy, to advocate these themes, to where now when people are going through this, let's say if they don't know this is OCD, that it will be established, and when they're like say researchers online, they can find the right resources towards the right treatment to get better, because you can absolutely get better with this. You can recover, you can overcome this. And also, obviously, when we advocate on this, to make them, let's say, less taboo talked about, that it is obviously growing in the population that OCD can latch on to these themes, where obviously this is what is most important to you, being with your family, being with your friends or loved ones, and to really establish that so that you can, let's say, go to a doctor or a therapist and say what you're really going through without like trying to disguise it into some other, let's say, just say maybe I'm going through severe anxiety, and they might give you, let's say, the wrong treatment or the not the right dosage of medication that can help you. That's why it's so important to address that, so that when you are going through these themes, because for me, when I was first going through with VTO, it was very difficult for me to say this to a doctor or to a therapist. I was like so on edge over the phone, thinking they're going to think like this is not OCD. They're going to think that I'm like, maybe I am all these terrible thoughts that I'm coming up in my mind, that I'm a deviant. And it was so petrifying. But obviously, to get this now advocated out here, like we're doing right now in our video, is to less stigmatize, like say, these taboo themes, to where it is OCD. It is a condition. It's a disorder. And you can find the treatment, and you can absolutely recover from this. You can reclaim your life and still live a full value-driven life.
Very good, Matthew. And, you know, like you said, it's ego dystonic. It's not the person's fault. And additionally, you know, the visual tic is automatic and not the person's fault. And people who have it want to avoid staring but find it difficult. It causes them to feel extreme anxiety, which makes staring worse. They think there is no escape from it, and some people become isolated, which is what you said, Matthew. Sometimes it is the tic that can be the trigger to the obsessional doubt, for example, when people's OCD is already active. So, for instance, they may have struggled with various things before the current obsession triggered by the tic. So that's a paedophile one. Other times, a staring tic may bring on the onset of OCD and subsequent obsession with paedophilia for people predisposed to the disorder. Does that all make sense?
Yes, it does, yes. Yeah, exactly, because obviously with this theme as well, again, when that tic happens, and then it says it lands on a child, like even if it's peripheral, let's say, like, why am I keep looking at this child? You could be like, you're going to feel all, like, say, again, the guilt and shame comes into it. This is how OCD works. Thinking, now I'm looking at this child, like, I'm having that fight, flight, freeze response. It's like, oh my God, does this mean again, like, am I a monster? Am I a deviant? Am I an actual paedophile? And also, like, you'd be so frightened that if anyone, let's say, of their family members might be near them, they see, like, say, you're looking at you in that freeze response, but you're looking in fear. But you are frozen in that FFF response, and that stigma will come up. This is how the fear really comes into play with this, because it's like with VTO as well, this can actually happen, where stigma can happen from it. I've experienced, not with me, with, like, say, with POCD, but with VTO, that has actually happened, and it can be really, really debilitating. The stigma can be really horrendous, and this is why it can lead to, like you say, isolation. It can lead to where that you can be maybe going towards substances. just to escape, let's say, this prison that OCD has now put you in, because you feel like you can't control, an example where maybe you're, like say, your eye, the tic movement may be, when I call it like calling the anxiety tic. When that triggers, it's like you are like frozen. You are frozen. Then the next response is you want to flee. You want to escape that situation. You don't want to go near that place ever again, because you'd be so terrified of that same thing happening. For example, again, if you're at school, for example, and you're walking your children there, and all of a sudden this tic might happen around kids there, you become so petrified of what the stigma may be from this, you will do anything as a compulsion, like say, to escape from that area and leave. You'll be even looking towards the pavement or the sky as your compulsion, so that, you know, let's say your certainty, or as reassurance that OCD is telling you, that if you're doing these things, then you know that you won't be called these things. For example, you won't be called all the stigmatizations that other people can send towards you or confront you with. But again, it's like, as we know, this is ego dystonic. It really does not define you, and that we want to obviously find ways with treatment that you can still, let's say, walk your children to school without having white knuckling it, without having the absolute fear with it. And then we can dissipate this, as well as, like say, with the VTO side of it, as well as the POCD side of it.
Yeah, because I mean, you can have the obsession without the tic. You know, so if someone does have active OCD and this becomes the current obsession, then rest assured that's what it is. And like you said, Matthew, it's ego dystonic. What's difficult is when or shall I say more difficult, is when a person has the tic. So for instance, if it was a school teacher, as you just mentioned, and you know, they've got this tic and they're trying not to look at children, that must be really hard. But again, it's not their fault.
No, it's not their fault.
A visual tic.
Yeah, exactly.
And it can be managed.
Yes, it can be managed, absolutely. Like I say, again, it happens within sheer anxiety, severe anxiety and fear. The person who experiences takes no pleasure from it whatsoever. It's the total opposite. And it, like I say, it's an anxiety tic driven to why this is happening.
That's right. And if they start with a tic, it might trigger the onset of paedophile obsession. So again, to understand that this is what it is, not to worry, you know.
Exactly.
They are okay, and they can get better from it.
Yeah, because like you say, this can trigger the POCD theme, where you even go further down the rabbit hole of OCD, because you really do feel then the shame. We discussed what revolves around this. And let's say again that even, like say, seeing your children at home, you become so terrified of, let's say, like when this is triggered, what may happen, that you don't go near your children. You just, you know, you'd be frightened of hugging them or anything like that because of your intrusive thoughts, you know, maybe intrusive, horrendous images that come into our minds, just giving us ourselves complete fear with that. But like you say again, Carol, with the correct treatment, evidence-based treatment, you can overcome this. You can recover from this.
Yeah, which is what we're up to now, really, is treatment.
Yes.
So treatment involves a combination of antidepressant medication and cognitive behavioural therapy, which includes the exposure response prevention. Medication can effectively reduce intrusive thoughts, and of course that can help, you know, with the compulsions as well. It's really an effective adjunct to the active therapy, which is the exposure response prevention. And so, you know, when they do the exposure response prevention, this is, you know, gradually exposing themselves to the obsessive fears, which might be in the classroom, like you said, Matthew. And then they're taught to resist the compulsions. So if the feared outcome is getting caught staring and called a paedophile, a person might be instructed to walk through a children's play park and resist escaping from that play park. It aims to make people less sensitised to their fears over time. That's what exposure response prevention does.
Absolutely, that's so well said, Carol. Yeah, exactly. Obviously, when you're doing, like, say, your ERP exposure response prevention, This is the goal. It's the, like I say, they call it the gold standard treatment. And it is for a reason. Yeah. And that is to reclaim your life back. And as well, what I like to, let's say, see with this is that you can do it as well. Like, you can do it with value driven to you with these exposures. And I think that's really, really important, because obviously.
I like that idea, Matthew.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I took that from, like I said, IOCDF with Liz Mackingale.
Oh, right. That's brilliant. Yeah. Yeah.
And they're amazing advocates, and it's so true, because that's what's helped me, let's say, in my recovery journey with VTO, doing value-driven exposure. So let's say, again, for example, for walking on a park, let's say, and when you see children, instead of, like, say, fleeing from the situation, you sit with that discomfort, but at the same time, you like walking at that park because you like being there. Yeah. You like hearing, let's say, the atmosphere. You might like hearing the kids enjoy playing, let's say, with their friends, and just hearing that atmosphere that brings you joy and just enjoy life in general. Or if you have a family as well, is to eventually, when you get to that point where you can, let's say, walk more closely with your children, and then you can walk with them to the park as well and meet their friends, and just be living your values that way, and like interacting with your children, going on slides, going on swings. Just remembering, retraining our minds that, like, again, that OCD is ego dystonic, and we know who we truly are, we our true morals are, and that's to, love our children unconditionally, and to be there and to make them feel safe, and be that their protector, have you will, that natural parenthood, and then just enjoying being in the moment in that park, and, like, say, hearing nature there, hearing the birds, hearing the wind, seeing the trees, even getting an ice cream with your kids, or even just going on, like I say, trampolines if they have them there, and having a good time, feeding bread to the ducks with your children, just interactions like that.
Yeah, sounds good, that, because it's mindful distraction. Yeah, it's not blocking anything out, so that's good.
Exactly. We're using, like I said, the mindfulness distraction and the joy to overcome the fear and the debilitation that OCD is trying to bring onto you. And it's basically saying to our minds that it's okay. It's okay. You don't need to keep telling me it's this huge danger that might do things, when I know that's, it's illogical. And this is why I'm doing ERP, to show OCD myself that exact same thing, so that when you go to more parks in the future, or anywhere else when you do further exposure response prevention, you can bring that with you, and then use that confidence to do more things or exposures that, towards maybe even, like, say, hugging your child. If you let's say, removed yourself from doing that, you can hug your child again. You can lift them up in the park. You can just smile and laugh with them. And that's what it's all about, is to, like I say, to reclaim your life, to live a full, happy, value-driven life. And again, with that, you can go to the cinema with your children, watch a family movie, or you can even do that at home. Let's say, for example, if you want to even start in this way doing ERP, you could be watching family movies. Let's say if you don't have a family, you could watch family movies at home. Let's say, for example, Home Alone, right? Classic, brilliant comedy movie. And obviously the main star at that time was a child. But yeah, you're, let's say, watching that movie because you're enjoying it for what it is. And it's a Christmas classic. Let's say when he absolutely brutalizes the burglars at the end in the most hilarious ways and traps, and you're laughing with that. That's brilliant, because you're watching a movie and not worrying, thinking, oh, I don't want to be, let's say, looking in certain places where I shouldn't be. I want to make sure I'm straight just looking at, let's say, Kevin's face, the character, or that I don't want to watch this movie because it's now got obviously a child in there that I'm frightened intrusive thoughts might come in my mind. But you're watching it because of what the movie really is all about. And that is, like I say, about family and the love of family, as well as seeing the comedy aspects of him terrorizing those burglars, and enjoying the movie for what it is. And that can be our mindfulness as well. Again, mindfulness distraction. You're laughing with the movie instead of thinking what OCD is trying to tell you. Yeah. And then you can use that as well with even watching other family movies and go from there. So that's my opinion anyway.
Well, I like that, and I like the idea, and that the viewers do, that we've got this value-driven exposure, with the mindful distraction.
Yes.
It sounds really good, and the way you explain that, it's really good.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got anything to say about medication, by the way, Matthew?
Yes. Like I say, me and Carol, we were talking about when we last met, we saw an article online, and I will put that in the description of this video, about gene testing. And I think that's brilliant. It's where basically, let's say, for example, you're seeing a dietitian and you're, let's say, finding new nutrition that can nourish you, or that certain foods that be more healthier for you and what trigger side effects, for example, that you might have been having before, and that's why you've gone to a dietitian. It's the same thing with this, with medication, that obviously when you do your gene testing, it can then basically pinpoint what side effects are more extreme than other side effects with different medications, if that's correct, Carol, on that.
Yeah.
If I said that right there.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, because I don't think it actually chooses a medication for you. It kind of rules out the ones that don't really work for you. But we can leave a link anyway for anybody who wants to look that up.
Yeah, I will do. I'll definitely we'll put a link down that on the video description below. Like you say, it just basically condenses it, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
So it's just, instead of was like trying to like have the lottery pick up the right medication, that can really help, like I say, for time wise, finding the right one so that you can get the benefits of, like I said, less side effects and the recovery process that we all want with medication.
Yeah. So you're talking about the exposures and those value-based exposures. And so I'm picturing a family, where one of the parents is having this paedophile obsession. And while they're doing the ERP and they're doing the mindful distraction, that's all working well. But because we've got this tic element, and the person is worried that they're going to, look at the children's private regions, that kind of thing, then we can bring in the habit reversal training that we talked about before. So it can help people suppress the tics during ERP and in ordinary situations as well, such as when shopping, visiting family and friends, that kind of thing. But let's say it's for exposure. In this case, I'll use the park situation to explain. The person in the park can choose an HRT technique. HRT is the habit reversal training, such as clenching his or her fists, so that they can feel their nails digging into the palm of their hand. It competes with a premonitory edged stare so that they suppress the tic until they're ready to release it, and then they take a furtive glance. So that's something that Jonathan Grayson has talked about, that sneak peek. So then after the furtive glance, they then resume ERP until their anxiety reduces to half of what it was before they started. So let's suppose it was 70 out of 100 on a 0 to 100 anxiety scale. The person would wait until their anxiety reached 35 out of 100 and then end the exposure. But during that exposure, it might go up more. So it starts at 70 when they're resisting that compulsion to escape or whatever it is they want to do, avoid. It might rise to, say, 90 because they're so anxious about wanting to do this compulsion, to reduce that anxiety and avoid danger. So then they would still wait for it to come down to half of what it was before they started. So that would still be 35. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes absolutely sense. Yeah.
So then they would end the exposure then. Yeah. So anyone interested in learning more about ERP and habit reversal training for visual tourettic OCD can find techniques in my book, Address Staring OCD, which they can find on Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely game changing right there. So your book is so good for this, like you say, where you've got all those HRT techniques written in there, and they are game changing to use. Because like you say, Carol, I do those techniques as well. Like I say, I've tried, like I say, with clenching the fist, that really, really helps, because that's like basically, as we say, like a competing response. So let's say when you feel like you're really on edge and you're really feeling that triggering situation, ERP, and it's like getting a bit too overwhelming. Let's say when you're walking past an area that, you feel is super triggered. When you do that, that takes away the that tic from happening, like suppresses it, have you will, because then you're feeling a competing response with doing that instead of thinking about where my eyes might be landing.
Yeah.
And that can be
That's
really,
right.
really helpful. Let's say, especially when you are starting doing ERP with this, because it is hard, it is difficult, and it can be really scary. But when you, like I say, when you have these techniques in place and you can practice with it, maybe at home, you can, let's say, again, this is a different conversation, but if you do open up to your family when you feel ready about this, I do recommend that, because for me, when I open up to my family, it was really game changing. I can be myself. But obviously we discussed that in other videos. If you want to check that out on that first video with obviously explaining what VTO is, we explain that in there, so absolutely check that out. So yes, like you say, with doing the clenching of the fists, even looking towards the horizon, which basically before I started on to me, I kind of already did anyway, but I forgot, obviously, when this was going through, I was so terrified I didn't even think of that. I just think I just want to look towards the floor, or even right directly up to the sky as a compulsion. Or like I say, I just wouldn't even go. Whereas that when you are, let's say, I don't know, for example, walking on the beach and there's families around and you start to feel really triggered, looking towards the horizon can be really game changing. You can look towards, let's say,
that can be a focal point.
Yeah. You can be looking towards, like, say, some really nice buildings in front of you towards you, access looking towards the sky. That's just being observant. You can be looking towards some nice scenery, maybe towards the cliff areas if you're around that type of beach, or like say nice palm trees wherever you are. Anything like that, like you say, for a focal point is really, really good, because then that takes away that, as we say, that somatic urge with that tic from happening. And you're looking at something of value that can be, again, like mindfulness distraction. And that can really help, and it can help you, let's say, more recollect yourself. You can regroup yourself and carry on and keep going forward to where, like you say, you can, from, let's say, if you hit that 90, going back down towards that 35% margin, and you can end your exposure.
Yeah, that's good. So in conclusion, paedophile obsessions in OCD involve intrusive thoughts and compulsions related to unwanted sexual attraction to children. So this is ego dystonic, which we mentioned earlier. Well, you did, Matthew. And that's a term to use to describe thoughts, wishes and urges inconsistent with people's beliefs, values and personalities. The opposite of this is ego syntonic, which describes thoughts, urges and desires that are acceptable to the ego or self. But in that case, you wouldn't see the OCD cycle. So the added tic of automatically staring at children's private regions can worsen distress and embarrassment for these individuals. But again, it's important to see that people have no sexual attraction or devious intention here. Instead, due to the ego dystonic nature of the problem, they suffer from feelings of guilt and shame. But these are confused reactions due to doubt. In other words, they may mistrust the truth about their sexual preference for other adults. Therefore, it's crucial to understand that tic-related obsessions are a symptom of OCD, and seeking treatment through medication and ERP can help these people manage and overcome their symptoms. And of course, you've got the habit reversal training there as well, mindfulness, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything you just said there, Carol. You really pinpointed greatly there. Well, like I say, I like where you explain the differences with ego dystonic and ego syntonic, because that straight away shows that when you feel the shame and disgust and the absolute displeasure of all this happening, it really shows that this really does not define who you are. It is OCD, it's a disorder. Even, like I say, it can feel so real at that moment in time, and you're having all these thoughts. You could have intrusive thoughts, could be screaming those names at you. It's still ego dystonic, and that's what you say with ERP, with medication, like say with other methods of treatment, like say even ICBT. Can really help, like say, with the logic with that. And so let's say when you have these thoughts, or when you're going through the exposures of when you're feeling extreme anxiety, you get to learn to sit with that discomfort, not like say white knuckling it. You're not white knuckling it. I don't want that. I don't want you to feel like totally completely afraid when you're doing that. You're doing it, say, like I said before, with value-driven exposures, that you've got something of a reason why you're doing that. You have a why, and that's so important. But then, as you say, Carol, as well, when let's say if that anxiety still peaked up, you can use the HRT techniques that can really help defuse that anxiety. Let's say that FFF response of doing a compulsion where you just want to escape from that. So Yeah, and like I said, with the medication as well, that can really help when you're doing ERP. And I definitely recommend having medication when you're doing treatment, because that can help as well. Let's say lessen the anxiety, it can dissipate the OCD with that, and that can really, really help.
Yeah, I agree.
So I recommend, like I said, as Liz Mackinvale, Chris Johnson greatly say, therapy and medication go hand in hand. And also, what I was saying about value-driven exposures, like even going to theme parks would be a good one. Let's say when your anxiety's gone down to 30% or even more than that when you're going around parks, when you're going around beaches or any public setting, let's say with families around. If you like theme parks, I love theme parks. I'm an adrenaline junkie, I admit
that. Yeah, no. Good for you, Matthew.
Yeah. I think theme parks would be a great one when, let's say, when you're doing good progress with ERP, because there's so many families around theme parks, it's a hot spot for it. And then you can say, well, when you're walking past these families, I have a value of being here. Let's say if I have families, well, I want to enjoy being in the moment. I want to see my kids enjoy the rides like as much as I do. I want to see that excitement in their eyes. I want to be a part of that journey. And also, let's say you're on a roller coaster, you're sitting next to your child, you can be sitting okay with that. Those intrusive thoughts might start to flare up with the obsessions. But then again, you can say at the same time, I know who I truly am. I know OCD is ego dystonic. That's not reassurance, that's assurance. And you can enjoy going on that roller coaster and let those thoughts sit there and fade away. Yeah. And that's when you really can start to feel the benefits of, let's say, the progression of doing ERP and the recovery. That's what we want the results to be, where you can be at these places like cinema again, or even a theatre if you like shows, seeing with your kids, or an event, or in a big arena. You want to experience all of that with your children, families, even going to Disney World. I'm a big Disney fan, everyone. I love Disney World. And to, let's say, when you've gone through these themes and when you do your ERP and that's your hierarchy, let's say Disney World's at a 10, you can absolutely get there and do it. You can recover, you can overcome this. You'd be like, look how far I've come. I was at one point where I was at rock bottom. I was isolated at my house and wouldn't go anywhere. I was so petrified, but look at me now. I'm going to Disney World with my family. Or then again, if you don't have a family and you want to go solo and meet people, socialize. As well as seeing all those families. And let's say if a child is sitting next to you, if you're a single ride passenger, you can still use those same techniques, and you can use those habit reversal techniques as well. Let's say if you're in a roller coaster, you can look towards like the end of that track. You can look towards the loop-de-loops, think, oh, that looks amazing. I can't wait to be on that part. And it just takes away the whole entire fear and doubts of the obsession. Because again, I know we said it quite a lot in this video, but OCD sucks. It's ego dystonic, and it does not define who you are. You are an amazing, great person, and you will reflect your values.
Yeah, I really love how you've got all that across, and giving hope to people.
Yeah, it's so important and game changing, because I've gone through being at rock bottom myself with VTO, and it is so debilitating. But you really can recover from this, because like for me, like next week I'm going to a rock concert. I haven't been to anywhere like this since this really hit me hard last year, and I was isolated. But now I'm like, when whoever's sitting next to me, even a random person, I can still sit there. I know that OCD is ego dystonic, doesn't define me, but I'm going to enjoy the moment of being here. I'm going to enjoy hearing the atmosphere of the crowd. And like I say, if families around me, and great. I'm okay with that. I'm not going to just go from my seat and leave. I'm going to still sit there. I can sit with that discomfort, but I'm not white knuckling it. I'm actually saying to myself, I'm going to enjoy this concert for what it is, and I'm going to rock out. So that's the whole process of what, like say, treatment, where we want to be at, where we can be, let's say, what could be our most trigger environments, where ERP, I love this, what Chris says so well, ERP becomes a lifestyle. It no longer becomes exposures.
Yeah, I can identify with that.
And you can just, basically, your number 10 most feared outcome would be where it becomes part of life again. You reclaim your life. Yeah. And that's when you have recovered and overcome from OCD. It's not a cure, but you learn to, like say, manage and live where it no longer becomes debilitating, and you can still live a happy, value-driven life. Have you got any more final words to say, Cal, or anything?
Well, kind of what you just said there, it does becoming inactive, because my OCD now is inactive. So yeah, there isn't a cure, but you can live a life without OCD because it's inactive.
Exactly.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, I love that, inactive. Well, have you got anything more to add to that, Carol, or do you feel happy with ending on that one, on that note?
Well, I would just like to say that to everyone watching this video, remember that having a paedophile obsession is not your fault. Likewise, the visual tic that may land on the private regions of children has nothing to do with your true desires. Visual Tourettic OCD with a paedophile obsession is a mental health condition. Therefore, subsequent shame and guilt are misplaced despite how real those emotions feel. Treatment is available and you can reach out and overcome this often debilitating disorder. The IOCDF can put you in touch with therapists specialising in OCD. That was the IOCDF. I rushed that a bit. Also, check out I think it's No OCD.
That's
no
right, yeah.
CD, yeah.
That's it.
No CD, yeah. I always think of it as NOCD, but it's not, it's No CD.
I was the same, but I've been listening to some of the more recent streams. They reference it as an OCD, even though, like you say, it looks very much just like NOCD.
Right, but it's really good. Is the No CD treatment of the treatment team at treatmyocd.com. They offer video-based OCD therapy and in-between session support in the No CD platform. Also, remember my book Address Daring OCD, which covers the ERP approach and HRT strategies. So it's all there basically, to get the treatment that you need. And I think that's it, really.
Yeah, and like you said, that was brilliant. Well said, Carol. Like all the resources there and how to find the right treatment for this. And I love that, like with No CD, that you can have virtual online treatment. That's so game changing. Because you are talking to an OCD specialist who truly gets what we're going through, and will not judge you upon that, and will, like I say, will want to get you recovered and reclaim your life, as that's always the ultimate goal. I've also I was looking through earlier as well, Carol, that OCD Stories at the moment are actually doing a discount offer because they have a 3 anniversary with No CD. So anyone from the UK watching this, you can get a discount to where it is, I believe, if I remember correctly, £25 for 2 months, which is amazing value. And I really recommend that.
OCD Stories?
OCD Stories, yes, with Stuart Ralph.
It's Stuart Ralph, yeah.
If you look on OCD Stories' YouTube channel on their most recent video, he has the discount code for that. I think it is OCD Stories, but check his video out and that will have the confirmation of the discount code. But yes, I absolutely recommend it. And what I love about No CD as well, it is worldwide. And I believe otherwise I think the minimum price is $50, if I remember correctly, which is still very great value for money to see an OCD specialist. And I think we shall end on that. I think we've covered everything. Have you covered everything, Carol, do you think, today?
I have, yeah. Thanks everyone for being here. See you again.
Yeah, thank you everyone. We are the OCD Visual Advocates. Thank you so much for joining. Again, you can buy Carol's books on Amazon, Address Daring OCD, as well as other books Carol has published, which are really good and game-changing with learning educational information about OCD, and which you can use for guidance in your recovery journey as well. And also to recommend that this video, this does not cover therapy. This is purely educational and resourcefulness only. So thank you everyone for joining, and we will see you next time. So bye everyone.
Thanks. Bye.